Hi everyone, this is Pastor Dan from Calvary Chapel, Cle Elum in Washington. We're continuing to talk today about the reality of spiritual warfare and demon possession. Last week we started out by talking about a Barna survey done back in 2009 that revealed the ignorance of the spirit world by many who claim to be Christians. Sadly, 40% of professing Christians say they don't believe Satan is a real person, but only a symbol of evil. Another 19% said they agree somewhat with that viewpoint. And another 8% said they weren't sure one way or the other. So if those numbers are still true today, then it's obvious to me that we need to spend some time demonstrating the biblical position on this important subject. So I want to pick up today reading our passage and then beginning to draw some conclusions from it. Ephesians 6 verse 10 says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly realms. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand." The biblical fact is that we are in a spiritual warfare, and it's something that's going on all around us at all times. Every person feels the effects and results of this spiritual warfare. You are under attack. Two forces are warring over you. The Spirit of God is working in your life to draw you to God's highest intention for you, to draw you to that place of fulfillment of God's purpose and plan for your life. He's making you aware of your sin and your weakness and your need for Jesus Christ. Now, the spiritual forces that are aligned with Satan are also working in your life. Only they're saying that believing in Jesus is really just a bunch of hogwash, that there's really nothing to it. It's just a bunch of emotionalism. They are seeking to work in your heart to put down God and the things that He is doing in your life. That's what this passage is teaching us. And so whether we realize it or not, we are actually in the midst of a spiritual conflict. And we have already aligned ourselves on one side of this conflict or the other. Either we have given our hearts and lives to Jesus Christ, aligning our spirit with His Spirit and seeking to discover His will and do His will in our lives no matter what, or we have aligned our spirits with the spiritual forces of darkness and are actually carrying out the will of the Prince of Darkness. For those in this latter category, the Prince of Darkness keeps them hedged up in a corner, captive by his power and prevented from seeking after Jesus Christ. Verse 12 confirms that. Now, there's really no way anybody can free himself from Satan's power because Satan is stronger than any human. Many of us have already discovered this several times over in our own lives. Some of you have carried certain habits around you that have literally plagued you. You've tried repeatedly to break that nasty habit or that addiction, but you've just been completely unable to do it. Some people really struggle with smoking. They've tried repeatedly to quit, but they just can't seem to do it. You look at that little cigarette and you realize it's just a small little thing. You figure that you really ought to be able to quit any time you want to, but you just can't. Yes, it's an addiction, but it's also one of many things that Satan uses to keep us in bondage. It's one example of how things can get such a grip on our lives that it's very hard to free ourselves from them. There are many things that we can get caught up in, things that are much worse than smoking, things that we really struggle with. But Jesus actually came to deliver us from the power of darkness and to translate us into the kingdom of light. 1 John 3:8 says, "He who sins is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. This is one of the reasons Jesus came. But again, we really are no match for Satan in our own strength. If you try to fight against Satan in your own strength, with your own might, you will fail every time. But Jesus came to set us free from the grip that Satan has on our lives. In Isaiah 61 verse 1, we're told that Jesus would proclaim liberty to the captives and the opening of the prison to those who are bound. Hebrews 2:14-15, it says that inasmuch then as the children have partaken of flesh and blood, that's us, he himself likewise shared in the same, that through death he might destroy him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. Again, that's those of us who trust in him. And so that's where every born-again child of God is right now. We have been set free from the bondage of the devil. We no longer belong to the kingdom of death and darkness, but we belong to the kingdom of light and life. Ephesians 5:8 says, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord." 1 Thessalonians 5:5, "You are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness." And being a part of that kingdom of light and life, we no longer need to be subject to death and darkness. In fact, we now have a power over death and darkness and the demonic spirits. Jesus said in Mark 16 that his disciples would be able to cast out demons. And we see Paul the Apostle doing this very thing in both Philippi and Ephesus. You can check it out in Acts 16 and 19. So we mustn't forget that our real struggle is actually against these forces of wickedness right now. Remember, it's a spiritual battle. Now, even though the real battle is a spiritual battle, it may manifest itself in physical ways. Maybe through some hassle that we're receiving from someone else. Maybe through some bad habit that we're unable to overcome. But though it's manifesting itself in a physical way, I dare not try to fight it in a physical way. I must avoid the physical arena and fight the battle only in the spiritual arena if I ever want to gain the victory. Now we must remember that Satan is powerful, but he's not all-powerful. His power is limited. The devil is not the opposite of God. Jesus has all authority, and he's given that authority to us so that we might fulfill his great commission in Mark 16:17 to drive out demons. The demons are subject to us as children of God because of Christ's death on the cross. And to me, that's a glorious thing. Now, as we talk about spiritual warfare, we must also talk about demon possession. So next week we'll touch on that, and particularly whether or not Christians can be demon possessed. I hope that you will come back for that. Once again, I hope this has been an encouragement to you. If it has, would you do me a favor? Click the like button and maybe share an encouraging word in the comment section. And please, would you share this with someone you think might benefit from it? If you're watching on the Calvary Chapel Cle Elum YouTube channel, would you subscribe to the channel? And if you're in the Cle Elum area and you don't have a home church, would you consider joining us on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 417 East Railroad Avenue in Cle Elum, Washington? Again, this is Pastor Dan from Calvary Chapel Cle Elum. Thanks for joining me today. May God bless you and keep you. And until we're able to get together next week, my prayer is that God will show us how we can fight the good fight and learn how to trust the Lord to equip us in the spiritual battle that we all face. In Jesus' name.